And we are recording.
Yeah.
All right.
We're good, man. What's up?
We are. All right. And we are back on the air. Back by popular demand. Welcome to the Napoleon and Gueco podcast. How have you been, Gueco?
What's up, man? I've been good. Trying to get this podcast going for a while, restarted.
Absolutely.
And now I'm glad to be here, man.
Yeah, no, it's great to be back because I remember I did talk previously about moving, and I was saying, hey, the betting odds of like, am I actually going to move to Las Vegas by the end of 2021? The odds for no would maybe be like minus 500 or minus 1,000, means it's a strong favorite that I wouldn't end up moving, but the favorite does not always win, and luckily I was able to make it out, but definitely got busy with the job the last couple of years, and they had me on the road a lot, and I was like busy working 50, 60 hours a week, and I was on salary, so I wasn't getting any overtime from that. I know it's been more than a 2-year hiatus since our last recording, so it's great to be back. Glad we could get this going again. And yeah, what have you been up to the last couple of years?
Well, I've been doing some trading.
Like,
Yeah.
Now I know you talked about working with Bitcoin trading in the past, but this is actual stock market trading now, stocks and bonds, maybe other types of funds that are in the market.
It's basically futures trading, futures contracts. So it's been pretty fun to learn about futures contracts, how they work, and all the types of trades that you can do with them. It's really cool. So yeah, I mean, that's part of what's been taking my time, but I've also been keep doing the same, trying to build up a YouTube audience and just trying to get in the game, the podcast game. I'm glad to be here.
Of course.
Trying to get that going again, because I think we had something going, we were building up some steam before we had to, stop for all the reasons.
Right.
You having a new job, a new place to live.
Of course.
So, what do you think of Las Vegas, man? What you see a lot of differences between Nevada and Texas, and how do you rate living in Nevada after living in Texas for so long?
So, basically, when I was moving here, from the time then till like our most recent recording, it was pretty much like that was the only time I was in Las Vegas, because when I started that job, I was barely here most of the time because they had me traveling a lot of the time. And don't get me wrong, I got to go visit some other states I haven't been to before. They were all great, but it wasn't until they let go of me earlier this year that I really didn't get to just live in Las Vegas full time until like right now. But just based on what I've experienced, I mean, I know they said it wasn't the same as just visiting, and of course, like, you're not going to be on the strip all of the time, but just even doing the local stuff out here and just going to like local dive bars, open mics, those kinds of things, it's great. And not only that, in Texas, I was used to the bars kicking me out at 2 a.m. because by law, they couldn't serve alcohol past that time. They have bars that will be open 24 hours. So,
oh, cool. Yeah. Well, I usually get kicked out like at 8 p.m., so I don't know about staying till 2, but cool.
No.
So they have 24-hour bar.
They do.
There.
So, I mean, it was so weird at first. I could be sitting there with a beer, and then I'll look at my watch, and it would say like 2:20 a.m., and I was like, wait, I'm still here? They're not kicking me out. They're not forcing me to chug. Oh, that's right. This is Las Vegas. But it is great. But like everything else.
Next time, bring your pillow.
What's that?
Next time, bring your pillow to the club,
Oh, no. They will actually kick you out, because anytime you will like have your head down, if they see you kind of like dozing at all, they will pop you up and they'll say, you can't fall asleep at a bar. If you feel like you're going to pass out, we'll call you a ride or something like that. But like, yeah, you can't fall asleep.
They take that serious.
It is, because, if you're on the strip, that you can take alcohol anywhere. Because most people are staying at the hotels. They automatically assume they're tourists. They're not really driving. They don't care if you're walking outside with a beer. But when you're off the strip, you could still be at a bar and you take alcohol outside, you will get in trouble, or they will tell you like, hey, you can't bring it out there, because it's the same thing that, who's it, TABC, is that the name of the group?
Yeah, yeah. That little agency that takes care of bartenders and
Yeah, TABC, Texas
liability
Alcoholic
stuff for
Beverage
alcohol.
Commission. It's pretty much similar laws when you're off the strip. The only difference is you don't get kicked out at 2 a.m., but at the same time, and you could also be drinking like crazy. And of course, if you are like, you know, almost blackout drunk, or you're about to pass out, like, sure, they will cut you off, but it does not happen as easily as a lot of places will do it in Texas. Because like, I was at a Buffalo Wild Wings back when I lived in San Antonio, and I had like 2 or 3 tall drafts. They weren't even real strong beers, but I still had them like within maybe an hour and a half. And so they kind of said, like, we want to wait before we serve you anymore because you had like too much too fast. Now that was like a few years ago, but that was the whole thing, is like, you could do that out here and they'll just keep them coming. And it's like, someone even made a joke that it's like, if you pass out when you're like playing at the blackjack or poker table, they'll
you
call
have more
in.
chance of winning.
No. You say you pass out and you fall off the seat, and then they call in like a paramedic. They will just pick you up and put you back on the chair at the table,
All
so the
right.
casino can keep taking your money. Of course, that
That
was
way you can keep
exaggerated, but
gambling.
it definitely takes a lot for you to be cut off. So that is what like the pro is. Sure, like you have some more freedoms than you might compared to other states, but the con side is, if you're not careful, you will mess yourself up, or you will have way too much, because the limits are a lot higher out here. They do set the bar a lot higher, and on top of that, I do not encourage anyone to drunk drive, but DUIs are not as common, especially in Las Vegas. I was told by some local comedians that there's a lot of other crimes that go on, you know, that there's a lot of other crazy things happening. Like, you're in Las Vegas, you see a little bit of everything. You'll see a whole bunch of people like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that. But that is part of Las Vegas. So you
At
will...
least cops don't have to deal with prostitution. That's good.
What's that?
They don't have to deal with prostitution.
In Las Vegas?
Right.
Uh,
Because it's legal.
Not in Las Vegas. In Clark County, it is actually illegal, and that is something a lot of tourists or a lot of people automatically confuse, or they're not aware of it. So they think it's legal, and then before long, you know, they could be around a cop.
They end up in jail.
Disguise. Right, end up in jail, damages their job, their reputation. The way I see it, it is
Like, you
not...
should have done it on the building next door. You would have been okay.
It's possible.
You have
Well,
to go
you
in
know,
that building.
it's just like a lot of other things out here. It's another form of gambling, basically saying, except you will not win any money off of it. You are guaranteed to lose money. But the question is, are you just going to lose money, or are you also going to end up in the slammer? So
Have you met any people out there that have told you or suggested that they are going to become professional gamblers? Or have you heard anyone say anything about professional gambling, or that they know a professional gambler, something like that? Do you have any experience with that? Like, is that a thing over there?
Right. I cannot say that I know a lot of people personally, but you will see a lot of professional gamblers in a lot of the hotels. And one thing that almost any expert on casino smarts will tell you, plus I myself from experience will say the same thing: always join the players club. So you go to a desk, and it's basically a card. You put it in the slot machine, or if you're at the tables, you hand it to the dealer, and it accumulates tier credits and reward points based on your activity. So the more you play...
So at least you get some like hotel rooms for free, or
Correct.
a dinner for free, or that kind of thing.
Exactly, and that is how, in a lot of ways, you know, they do say the house always wins. And of course, by law, the casinos do have to pay out a certain percentage of what they take in, but at the same time...
There are some people making money, yeah.
They are. They are. Like there are professional as far as like
Or some people getting
professional
lucky one weekend or whatever, right? Like some people just get lucky for the weekend and they go home with more money than they came in
They
with.
do, but it usually goes the opposite way.
Of course,
I've
right.
heard a lot of crazy stories about people coming in, gambling their life savings, or people who are just actually
Their
they
401ks.
sadly, and it probably happens more than you think. But
Yeah.
that is one of the sad things is I see people outside with their suitcases and they
Yeah.
will have to
Crying and
walk
stuff.
all the way to the airport because they lost every dollar they had. They could not even afford to call an Uber to take them to the airport after they checked out of the hotel, or it's possible the hotel even evicted them because they could not have paid
Jeez.
the rest of their hotel bill. So that
Dang.
is one
Yeah.
really sad thing, and
Gets real.
it really does. That's one sad thing is that, and that's why all the hotels, they have all these pamphlets talking about know your limits, like call this number if you have a gambling problem, because it is an actual thing. Like there was a movie, and I recommend anyone who is watching or listening to this episode, I think it was released in 2014 with Mark Wahlberg called The Gambler. So it's basically somebody who will go play, like he would put $1,000 on the blackjack table. He would win the hand. He'd double his money to 2,000, and then he would go again. He would double it to 4,000, but he would just keep letting it ride until he'd lose it all. And I would
I
just
think
like,
I saw that movie. I think was there two actors? Like was it like a buddy type of film with two friends or no?
I don't
That's not-
believe so.
Oh, okay.
I hope you're not thinking of The Hangover with Bradley Cooper.
Right. No, there was another like Vegas specific gambling
Right.
addiction type movie with two good actors. I can't remember exactly. I have to like look it up, but it was dark in a fun watching experience. So it was a good movie. It wasn't like so serious, but it was talking about that addiction that people have from gambling and stuff. So some good actors too. I mean, I can't remember, but could be like Ryan Reynolds or something like that, like one of those actors like that. But in any case, the one you're talking about with Mark Wahlberg, I think I might have seen it. I might have watched it. Like, sounds familiar.
Of course.
Do you gamble? Do you like to get in the casinos and throw a little bit of money here and there, or are you just staying out of that completely?
Occasionally, I might go to a 25-cent video poker machine or Keno machine, and if I lose, usually I'll put in $10, something like that, to where if I lose, it's not like I lose a lot. And that's one thing that everybody will tell you, and most of the professional gamblers will tell you, do not play a slot machine. It's set most of the time to pay maybe 80 cents for every dollar it takes in. I'd say now, just with all the inflation and just how much they've raised their like tourist prices out here, or like the hotel rates, a lot of it's like gone way up from what it used to be because the casinos are trying to get back what they lost over the pandemic. I imagine more of the slot machines are maybe paying out 70 cents to every dollar. But every professional gambler, they'll usually play like poker, a lot of professional poker players, tournaments, and some of them do make money off of that, but you have to be really good at it. Like, I'll play Texas Hold'em for fun, but I could not bet anywhere near as much as they do. But that is one thing I always have in mind is if I bet something, I've pre-decided that I can live without it, that if I lose that bet, that's
not
fine.
a big deal.
It's not the end of the world. You can't bet like your life depends on it. And that's another thing.
Unless you're good at it. I mean, I know what you're doing. I'm just saying some people do have the ability
can
to
do it.
make it
Like
a job.
poker
Count
players,
cards, have an edge, whatever it takes.
exactly. I usually don't play at the blackjack tables because the bets start at like 20 or 30 bucks, and that's way too much for me to do like for one bet, for a single bet. Maybe all night if I was doing like, lost $20 in like $1 bets, whatever. But actually, you can no longer count cards in blackjack. It's not like that movie 21.
Yeah, because
anymore.
they changed the system that they use with the cards, how they switch the decks and
They used to play with like one or two decks at a time.
right.
So you were easily able to count, okay, how many aces, how many face cards and tens are in the deck. But now they are constantly shuffling the cards to where it's all random. There is no way you can tell what cards are coming up unless you're Superman and you have X-ray vision and can see through the cards.
Well, just as the casinos' methods of preventing people from cheating, because counting cards wasn't really cheating. It was just, basically having an edge in the system, right? How the system works and having some kind of ability to do that. But since they have upped the ante, the casinos, then the hackers up the ante as well. So they're coming up with other ways to count cards or whatever it takes now. I mean, they have microchip type of devices now that they can use to read cards. But it's probably a very, very, very small percentage of the population that does that of people in the casinos that can actually do something like that or are willing to risk doing like something like that, because you can get banned from the casinos and stuff if they all kind of decide that you're not a persona non grata. They can just cut you off the casinos. I think there's a association for casinos or something, some kind of agency that overrules.
I don't know the actual names, but you brought up two good points. First of all, the counting cards thing, which the movie 21 was based off of.
Right, that's a good movie, yeah.
That is a real thing, and technically, like you said, you are not cheating. You beat the system.
Yeah.
However, if they caught you back in the day,
they'd break your fingers.
They would if you kept doing it, but most of them would be nice to you the first time and they would let you take your money, but they would tell you, we know what you're up to, don't come back here again. But now, if you're doing the whole microchip thing, and I encourage a lot of people to watch a TV series that ran about in the early 2000s called Las Vegas, had James Caan and Josh Duhamel. Mm-hmm. And it more had to do with Las Vegas more like 20 years ago. But still, even in that day, and I think a lot of those hacks that they used probably you can't get away with anymore. But that goes to show there are a lot of people out there who are great with technology, who are looking for ways to hack the system. That is still seen as cheating. And if you are caught, you will be banned and you could get beat up for it, depending on what happens. But people don't really kind of get beat up as much nowadays. They still have a lot of security. They will kick you out. They will tell you not to come back, possibly ban you from Las Vegas. I don't know. It is getting a lot harder to cheat. And so the way I see it is that if you are playing, just go there, have a budget, set your limits, and kind of like with me, I'll bet $10 on video poker. If I lose it all, whatever. That's it. We're not playing anymore. And that's one thing that I like to tell a lot of people. That's a problem I had when I went on my 21st birthday and I just wanted to start playing to see what it was like, because what I tried to do is I tried to time the slot machines kind of like you go to a Dave & Buster's and you're playing arcade games and they have the jackpots for 500 or 1,000 tickets. Once there's a certain amount of money in the machines or a certain number of people have played the machine will eventually be ready to give away the major prize or that jackpot. And a lot of times they'll start at 500 and they'll just keep accumulating until someone wins. If I was around the machines enough, I would be able to find the threshold and think, okay, it was at 750 and somebody won it. So I'm going to wait till a bunch of people have played the machine, and then I'm going to come back right when it hits that threshold, and then I'll play it, and then I would win the jackpots. But that's the thing. Yeah. Slot machines can't be timed like arcade games. And I kind of learned that the hard way. And then what frustrated me was I maybe was down 40 or 50 bucks, and I was like, oh man, I have to get it back now. That is one other thing besides
revenge gambling.
To lose. Don't try to get back what you lost, because I'd say 9 out of 10 times somebody starts playing, and that is probably a conservative estimate, but I would just say most people who do start playing machines, they will end up losing money, and at first they go with the attitude, oh, I'm here to win, and then after about one day, they say it goes from I'm here to win to I'm here to get my money back. So at that point, they'll be happy if they just break even. And
they'll be happy if they just take they would be happy to get back at the initial loss. So let's say they lose, $1,000, then
they try to get that back.
They try to get back to zero or to profit to $1,000 in gains. They go down to 2,000, and they're like, oh, I'll just be happy to lose 1,000. You know what I mean? It's like the ladder gets down and down and down, and there's no bottom. That's the problem, is there's no bottom. You can just lose as much as you can think of.
Right. I mean, it depends on who you are, but that's why the casinos hand out those phone numbers, those like gamblers hotlines and stuff, because that way it covers up the hotel and they can't get in trouble, because people try to sue for all kinds of reasons. I will talk to Uber drivers who've been card dealers before, and I will hear all kinds of stories about them having people who are like a lot of trouble, or one person who was saying like they lost maybe $1,000 at the blackjack table. And then after that happened, like they said, okay, they knew they'd lost, so they were like, well, can I at least have my money back? Like they knew they hadn't won, but they thought, oh, hey, I can just still get back what I brought here, right?
Right.
They thought they could still break even. But that was one thing about, like, I met a comedian at the Laugh Factory at a hotel called the Tropicana, which just shut down recently, but had been here a while, and there's usually a lot of great performers at the Laugh Factory. So I talked with him after the show, and he told me that he used to be a card dealer in a casino, and I told him that at one point that I might like to be a card dealer, because in the casinos you have to be 21 or older, and I would love a job in a casino because I wouldn't have to really work around kids. And he said, yeah, you won't work with kids, but sometimes you will work with some adults that act like kids when they lose.
Probably worse. A kid at least is like, you give him some candy and he relaxes.
I don't think it's that easy.
You have to give him some cocaine and hookers.
We couldn't do that legally, but they could always get some tequila. That might help.
Well, yeah.
That's what I always tell everyone. And one thing that I did want to get into is sports gambling.
Okay.
Sports.
That seems to be a little bit more convenient for the average person, if you have, because you can have an edge. Really, you can be
sometimes right.
You can kind of know the industry. For example, like I know the sport of tennis well because I've played for 20 years and
correct.
I have a bunch of friends that play. I've been in the industry of tennis coaching and stuff.
Absolutely.
And so when two players, it's not to say that I have an advantage over the market or anything like that, but at least I have some kind of insight into what it takes to win. It probably would take me a while to figure out how to make money gambling on that, but I do have friends that do that and are, it's not like it's their job or anything, but they make a little bit of cash here and there, and their losses are smaller than their gains, so they end up with a nice hobby that pays them. So that's a better way to, in my opinion, to play,
so
play some kind of game.
Correct. So besides poker players, most of the people I know who are professional gamblers are into sports betting. In fact, I've met at least one of them at a Buffalo Wild Wings I'll go to watch football on Sundays. So I don't know how he does it. He will bet like $1,000 or $2,000 here and there. Like he'll make all these live bets on the game, and I'm like, I'm that divided by 100. I mean, with me, I'm the type of person that will do $5 or $10 with bets. Sometimes, say if a team's down 2 touchdowns, of course their betting odds go up. Might throw $5 over there because it's like, hey, the odds are plus 600. That means if they still win at this point, even with a $5 bet, that's $30. And guess what? Even if I lose, it's just $5 that I lose. So sometimes I'll do that, but at the same time, I'm not doing that professionally. I'm still doing it for fun, but I'm only betting what I could afford to lose. But I did end up lucking out on the Super Bowl. It was weird, but Kansas City was a slight underdog, and I was like, nope, there's no way they're going to lose. And a lot of people had to say, oh, Taylor Swift helped fix the Super Bowl, which we can't prove it, but if that was the case, I would believe it. I would not deny it.
Well, plus, I mean, the thing with it being fixed, you don't know which way it's going to be fixed on, so you're still gambling anyway. So
right, I know
it doesn't really matter.
But everyone kept saying, like, the NFL made millions if not billions, off of the Taylor Swift fans. Like, they didn't know anything about football, but they were all buying jerseys just because Taylor Swift was at the game. So a lot of people said that played a part with Kansas City winning the Super Bowl because they were behind most of it. I don't know if you watched it, but I've heard other people who know.
Oh, yeah, with those final touchdown, right? There was a
Correct.
touchdown
In overtime. And that was the whole thing, is they were behind most of the game. A lot of the people I know who kind of keep up with football, who know it pretty well, who were just watching it real close, they said there was no reason San Francisco should not have won that game.
But also, that's kind of how games go, you know.
They can.
It can go. It did, and it's just speculation. Of course, the losing team is always going to say that it wasn't unfair, that it wasn't fair.
Right.
And that's the tough part about sports that I don't like. It's like the fanatism gets so big that there's no humbleness to say, hey, they played better, they won.
Right.
There's, usually the losing team has some kind of argument to, it wasn't this and that, excuses. That's just when they win, they played well. There's no.
Correct.
It's not like their team wins and then they say, we had the scamming advantage, or we had, this going for us. Or
we had Taylor Swift going.
Exactly. Exactly. It's only the losing team that claims to have a foul play. And I think that's where I say, okay, well, this is just fanatism. It's not really a competition here. You know what I mean? At least a fair competition in any way.
Right. No, I understand what you're saying. And I know people who played football, maybe not pro football, but they say they don't understand how a whole game could be scripted, but that the referees can also tweak it in certain directions. They can sometimes throw out penalties, kind of like holding penalties. They happen all the times on almost every play. But then there could be somebody who scores a touchdown and then they get a holding penalty and have to go back 10 yards. And everyone's like, what? What was the point of that? And I understand what you're saying. So whether or not, I mean, the deal was, regardless of whether the game was fair or not, I definitely had a big payout because, kind of like what you said, sports betting, you can sometimes have a better prediction of how the turnout's going to be than if you're just sitting at the card table playing blackjack or poker. You don't always know what the cards are.
The thing with sports gambling is that you do kind of have to have some knowledge of the sport, because a lot of times you're not just betting whether one team wins or not, which you could do, just bet on the winning team. But the real way to make moves and stuff is you actually predict the score, or the
Right.
When there's a touchdown, maybe on the third quarter, whatever
Correct.
it may be, whether it's a kick or a throw. And so all those things make it so that it's less likely that you win, because if it's 1-1, right, whether your team wins or loses, it's 50-50. But with all those things added up, now your chances of winning are smaller, but the chance of making it big or having your $10 be $100
Right.
also increases with it. So the risk gets bigger, but the reward also gets bigger. And so that's that's what I think you have to have, like, a real insight in the game, maybe know specific things about players and the coaches, the staff, what the vibe is in the team, what the stats are, I guess, whether they're for you or against you.
Right. I understand what you were saying. And it is true. It's kind of like, I know a lot of people will try to predict the point spreads, which I know it's not just in football, but it's also in tennis. Kind of
everything,
since you kind of know tennis better, I usually bet on Novak Djokovic to win tennis matches because he is the best tennis player. And I believe he's already tied Serena Williams for Grand Slam championships. Or I think he actually surpassed her. I think he's actually tied with Margaret Court.
People say he's the best ever, and he probably is.
That's what people are saying, is that
it's very hard to deny.
I think he is currently tied with Margaret Court and still is not retired.
Right.
So I believe
But it's other times, though. It's hard to compare. Margaret Court was what, 1950s, or I don't know. But it's hard to compare because of the type of competition, what it takes to win nowadays in the level and stuff, and of fitness also. That's the accomplishment I think Novak has. Is just, I think he's the best athlete period in the world. I mean, who can move like him? Who can like, slide like he does? And he's so flexible, it's like he could be a swimmer or a soccer player or a boxer. I mean, I doubt he would be bad at any sport, just the way he moves.
Yeah.
And the endurance and the mindset, he's the kind of guy that's like down, break, match point and comes back with a huge win. Like, he's never done. You never beat him until you beat him. And he's probably, he's probably different in that way, in like other players. For example, like Rafa Nadal, right? Nadal will kick your ass.
Oh, he will. But I think Djokovic, he's about retired.
He just won't lose.
Oh, I know.
That's the difference is there. It's like Rafa comes out to kick your butt, but Djokovic comes in to never lose. And I think that's what makes him even harder to beat, because how can you beat a guy that never loses? Whereas the guy that kicks your butt, maybe you get lucky, maybe you have make him upset, and now he's trying to beat you and loses. Whereas Djokovic is never trying to beat you. He's just not going to lose. So it's much harder to play, I think.
Oh, absolutely. And there have been games where anytime he's down 2 sets that they say, oh, he hadn't come back. And then sure enough, that tournament, which I believe was the Australian Open 2020 before the pandemic hit, he came back, won the 3rd, 4th, and 5th sets, and won the championship.
Yeah, he's crazy.
What I will do, as far as like where you talk about more risk but more reward,
right?
Kind of like in tennis, what I will do sometimes is make future bets before the tournament even starts. This won't be on any individual match, because odds are, first few rounds, what are the odds going to be for Djokovic to win? Minus 10,000. And that goes for like any great athlete that you're betting on, or any great sports team early on. The odds will be really high, so where the payout's not that much. But you bet future bets, say, is he going to win the French Open? That's usually one that Rafa Nadal is better at. So he's probably a slight favorite in the future bets, but then Djokovic, the odds might be plus 200, plus 300. So, hey, you bet $20 and it's plus 300, that's a $60 win, compared to if you just bet on him to win the championships, where the odds might be minus 400. You bet $20 there, you're coming out with $5. That's one reason, like, kind of like what you're saying is, usually if it's like, a soft favorite where it's minus 200 odds, fine, $20 we win 10, that's fine. But when it gets to be like minus 1,000, you bet $100, you win $10 off of that. I mean, sure, it'd be nice to win $10, but at the same time, I don't like to take that risks, because
it ain't worth it.
What if in the off chance there is an upset?
Exactly.
You lose $100 right there. Yeah. So that's one.
And there's a guy that only bets on the underdog and takes a lot of losses, but when they get paid out, it covers all their losses and gets some profit.
Absolutely.
And that's an interesting kind of gambler, in my opinion. The one that takes a very low risk, but it takes a lot of low risks until it pays out. That's cool. Napoleon, I think we're running out of time. Let's leave this for the next podcast. I think it's been really good to catch up again, and I'm excited to get this going again.
Absolutely. All right. Well, it was great doing this. Hope we can do more of these in the future. So thank you all again for watching us or listening to us, and we will see you on the next episode of the Napoleon and Gueco podcast.
Peace, everybody.
Peace.